Hello everyone, welcome back to Crimson Gray, Dusk and Dawn. Let's go ahead and continue. It has been a while and I do apologize. Life proceeded normally enough. A significant part of campus was busy preparing for the arrival. There were even more people who didn't know or didn't care. But it mattered to John. So it mattered to Lizzie. Lizzie had joined him in spending time with the preparations, and it seemed to go well. She was glad to see John invested in something like this. But when she came home from class one day, she realized she might have gotten it entirely wrong. John slumped on the couch, too unfocused to notice her. There was an emptiness in his eyes that she hadn't seen in some time, immediately making her heart hammer in her chest. "John, are you okay? Is something wrong?" "I'm just a little tired. There's not a problem or anything." "Of course there's a problem. If you're not feeling okay." You don't have to pretend to smile for me, John. It's okay to be sad sometimes." "John, why do you look so surprised?" "Thank you, Lizzie. It's nothing specific, I'm just having a bad day." "Then stay right there and don't worry about anything." She skipped closer and gave him a quick hug and kiss, and tried to press. Instead, she moved on to the kitchen, getting something simmering. When John was depressed, he didn't want to eat. She had learned that trying to force it could turn bad. But the smell would slowly get through to him. While doing her work, Lizzie headed into their bathroom and counted his depression medication. It didn't seem like he had forgotten or that he had taken more than usual, which was good. Though his medication helped, it couldn't make his life perfect. There had been a time when she had desperately hoped that she could do that. She still wished that she could, but she knew that his sadness didn't mean that he didn't love her. All she could do was be supportive. When she came back out, he had slumped back further, but she saw a bit more relaxation in his posture. Suddenly her heart ached with love for him so intense that she had to support herself on the doorframe. She didn't deserve him. He was always so supportive, so kind, even when it cost him. It was easy to just bask in his presence, to see him as a shining paragon. But her John was human, had limited resources, and that she had missed the signs as she sometimes did. One of Lizzie's fingers slid up to her mouth, and she started to bite down on it, but she pulled back. John wouldn't want her to do that. Instead, she moved into the room, determined to get back this time. She checked on the soup, then went to sit beside him, just touching his side a little, being present without demanding anything of him. John smiled at her, but didn't say anything. It was a quiet smile that faded into sadness, but she loved it too. These incidents always magnified her love for him. She didn't love his depression, but when he was like this, he seemed so truly real that she couldn't take her eyes off him. Lizzie restrained herself and just sat supportively. After a time, though, she shifted. Later on, maybe they could eat, but until then... "Do you need to talk about anything?" "I'll be okay, I think. I just overextended myself preparing for Kelsey's visit." "Oh. I haven't been pushing you too much, have I? I liked when we worked together before, so..." No, I didn't mean it at all. There's just so much to do." "But you don't have to do it all, remember? Don't push too hard." "You're right. Thanks, Lizzie." Lizzie thought that their conversation had gone well, but she was plagued by doubt. She had noticed this depression incoming, hadn't been able to prevent it. She began going over every interaction in minute detail, wondering where she had neglected something. Lizzie realized that she needed to get out of her head. If she let herself keep thinking that way, she would end up spending her evening developing elaborate plans to kill someone or kidnap John to safety. Oh. She needed to do something, but what? Well, a relationship is pretty good with communication, but would that help? Alright, John, let's see. Let's talk about our issues. Lizzie wanted to be supportive, but she knew she couldn't help him if she let herself grow unstable. So she hesitantly began to talk, letting him know about her insecurities. Though John didn't have much energy to spare, he did his best to listen. But as things went on, Lizzie began to tell that he was growing more depressed. She decided differently, but it was too late. They stopped talking after a while and just held each other on the couch, drifting closer to sleep as exhaustion claimed them. What about the soup? As she fell asleep, Lizzie settled on another thought. This visit might be a good thing, but she would be very glad when it was over. I don't think I made the right decision with that. When the day finally came, it wasn't as grand as all the build-up had led Lizzie to expect. It was just another speaker coming to campus after all, and as one of the better universities in the region, they got plenty of speakers. The growing power of pharmaceuticals was a somewhat hot topic, but it was hardly a source of celebrity. Expectations had been tempered by John's attitude, though. Aaron and some of the other organizers were exhilarated, as if a visit from a guest speaker would change everything. But as usual, he was more reserved. It was one of the things that made his love for her so special, and she loved it as part of him. The low-key nature of the entire thing did a lot to calm her anxiety. Though Lizzie had filled many pages of her notebook with plans in the event of an attack, but given that this was one step in a long speaking tour, it seemed less likely that Koitek would actually try anything. They were headed out to attend soon, and though it was going to be as casual as most events on campus, Lizzie had dressed up a little out of habit. She lingered by the cabinet, trying to select which weapons to take along with her. The problem was that she had room for so few. Her axe, of course, but the knives were always a problem. Ready to go, Lizzie? Almost, John. Just let me pick a knife and I'll be with you. He leaned against the nearby wall, watching her thoughtfully as she chose. After a moment, he spoke slowly. I'm just wondering, would you be happy if Kelsey managed to destroy Koitek somehow? Of course, it's a terrible company. It gave you that awful drug and it tried to take us apart. She isn't going to destroy it, just to regulate it. Maybe things will get better. But I want revenge. I meant destroy in a metaphorical sense. Dismantling the corporation. You're more thinking leveling it to the ground. Blood and flames. Lizzie answered happily and finally picked a slender knife. A good balance of range, heavy enough to be durable, but thin enough to augment her axe with stabbing potential. She set it into place and turned to him. But I don't mind things like this. Anything that works against them is good. And though I don't want you to hurt yourself, I'm happy that you care about this so much. But there was some way to leave them intact but ensure they never bothered us again. I take it, of course. You're the most important thing. She leaned forward to give him a kiss, letting this one linger. And it might be their last until the serious event was over, so she wanted to enjoy it. Not that she minded waiting. It made the next kiss when they came together again all the sweeter. I just wanted to say that you're the most important thing to me too. Sorry if I seem preoccupied by all this. No, it's fine. I like to see you put some things you love. Well, I don't take you for granted. I hope I never do. Aw, John. If you're talking like that, we won't make it to the event. He chuckled and offered her his arm, which she gladly accepted. They headed out to the hall near to hear the speech. They arrived and found the hall surprisingly full. Almost enough to make her wish they'd arrived earlier, but would be fine. Aaron waved to them from near the front, but those seats were already full, so they took ones near the back. It's good to see our work wasn't wasted, at least. Lots of people seem interested. Lots of people from the community, too. Doesn't surprise me. Cortec may not have direct presence here, but they manufacture so many drugs that people have to know about them. Lizzie reached out to hold his hand while they waited for things to get started. He took it and chatted casually with her until it was finally time. After some awkward testing at the mic and a squeal of feedback, Dean managed to quiet people down. They gave an introduction to Francesca Kelsey. Lizzie wasn't able to focus on it. She already knew the information and it was essentially just a formality anyway. More importantly, Lizzie looked for the woman herself and found her seated near the front. She looked like pictures. Nothing out of the ordinary, but Lizzie shifted her gaze between her and the exes just to be sure. When Francesca Kelsey took the stage, Lizzie surreptitiously... Lizzie surreptitiously... Yeah, I think I said that right. Shot a glance at John. But she had been in the wrong way. He had shifted to his purely focused mode, interested only in what she had to say. No, I did not say that right. Surreptitiously. On my first day of work at the FDCA, my supervisor said I should look for another job, because the organization wouldn't be needed for long. She was a good speaker though. Though her speech had the feeling of one that had been repeated a huge number of times. It had an air of authenticity, but it was a practice authenticity. Lizzie could only focus on it in the background anyway. While listening idly, Lizzie came to the realization. Something she had never said to John. Probably something she should discuss with him. She squirmed a little in her seat, wondering what thoughts he might have about it, but she couldn't interrupt. Some people might have said that Pt.3 created her, but their ill-advised experiment when Abby was pregnant. Lizzie had never felt that way until now had not reflected on that fact. Now she understood why. The experiment might have made her different from other girls, but Lizzie didn't care about that. What mattered to her was the person she was now, shaped by her years growing up, and most importantly, shaped by John. Her world had felt so hollow and empty, and then when she had found him, she had been on a maniacal, and her focus on him. He had opened up a new world of possibilities for her. Unable to contain herself, Lizzie leaned over and kissed John on the cheek. He blinked in surprise and then smiled at her, resting her head against his shoulder. Lizzie let her focus drift back to speech for a moment. The industry's lobbyists would have you believe that their self-regulation has been and will continue to be effective. The primary example that is always brought up is how thalidomide was kicked out of the United States and so many children were spared birth defects. But as I demonstrate thoroughly in my book, this was more of a quirk of fate than self-regulation, and that thin layered defense will not be remotely adequate given the massive increase in research and development we've seen over the past 2 decades. Most notably, many of the newest drugs have been being produced to treat conditions that are fundamentally subjective. Their consequences, if any, will take years to emerge and may not always be as clearly defined as birth defects. Make no mistake, there are people alive today bearing the scars of this unchecked research. Sooner or later they will come forward. Lizzie sat tensely, deciding to hold in her concerns over that development, but John had already considered that. He squeezed her hand and bent closer to whisper to her, "Are you alright?" "John, would you want me to step forward and do that?" "No." His answer came immediately. Lizzie was a little surprised, and John seemed to have taken himself aback, but a moment later he smiled. "No. It mattered more to me than all of this. Anyone who stepped forward would be surrounded by a horrible amount of controversy. I want you here with me." Her smile widened and Lizzie leaned in to kiss him, tears in her eyes. She had so many things she wanted to say to him, but some people around them were already glaring at her, whispering. When the two of them kissed, Mr. Glarus rolled her eyes and turned away. The speech ended with Francesca's usual conclusion. The FDA was toothless compared to the pharmaceutical giants, and the world needed a far more comprehensive set of regulations. Part of Lizzie's mind acknowledged that, as true, but seemed a very distant and clinical thought compared to the warmth inside her. After the speech, the floor was open to questions, which drew their attention away from each other. This was the part John was most interested in, after all, and Lizzie agreed with him that they were more likely to hear new information during that part. The first person to get the mic asked a boring, generic question about what students could do in the face of giant companies. She also had a flirtatious walk, so Lizzie scowled at her for both reasons. Soon, though, Aaron was at the mic to ask his question. You cover the potential impact on the United States as well, but only spoke in vague terms about the need for international regulations. But what impact do you expect the rise of pharmaceutical giants to have on the global South? It was a question Lizzie hadn't really given much thought of. She reflected that Aaron was always caring about impoverished and disadvantaged people. That was not a trait Lizzie shared, but looking at it objectively, she decided that it was a good form of kindness. She appreciated kindness in John, so she should give Aaron some credit as well. Outside of her mind, Francesca paused for only a moment before answering. Her response was smooth, but lacked the practical air of her speech. Any large corporation is going to have a global impact, of course. And they'll see it especially in the rainforest and in mineral-rich countries. Needless to say, those relationships will be exploitative. But I think we should be most suspicious of the reactions that actually seem benevolent. Specifically, the ostensibly altruistic donations of drugs to various countries for free or produced at cost. For example, I have long believed that Zacks Inc. is distributing insufficiently tested drugs and effectively using the supposed beneficiaries of their donations as test subjects. But there can be serious concerns even for well-intentioned attempts, such as the mental stimulants Menninger AG donated in sub-Saharan Africa. They've had a positive impact on test scores, yes, but those drugs have serious long-term side effects when not taken according to a rigid schedule. Given the reality of the situation, both financial and personal, many recipients simply won't follow or even have a chance to follow the proper course. We'll be seeing the consequences of that for years. A decent question, if not one that held particular interest for her. Lizzie listened to a few more bad questions before she sensed a general movement in John's body and realized that he was getting up to ask a question of his own. She nodded to him and let go of his hand. She listened in irritation as other people asked questions. But finally, it was his turn. He cleared his throat nervously, but wasn't so uncomfortable as he might have been before. For those of us who want to have a career in this field, where do you think you can make the most difference? What balance do you see between regulating from the outside and trying to change organizations? What balance do you see between regulating from the outside and trying to change organizations from within? Not a bad question. Though Lizzie had found herself wondering just how much it mirrored his thought process. He had discussed his thoughts about the future with her, of course. There was something different about hearing him state them out loud in front of so many people. A good question, but a difficult one. I'd like to believe that the best answer is the FDCA or another regulatory body. I'm not sure I'd recommend someone who hasn't started a career go that direction. We'll see what happens with our lobbying over the next few years. As for reforming from within, I'm tempted to say that's impossible. Look at soft synth. It carried the Japanese economy for a time, but now internal conflict is threatening long-term deflation. This is pretty nice that we're learning more about the international effects of core tech and stuff. In my mind, the biggest threat is that corporations will lack meaningful competition and make it effectively impossible for anyone to regulate them. So honestly, what we might need more than anyone is business majors. That got a laugh from the audience, but struck Lizzie as a serious answer. John pondered it as well. His eyes contemplated as he returned to sit beside her. John was dying to know his thoughts, but for now, she just smiled as he sat down beside her. None of the questions after that were particularly notable. Lizzie began to get nervous as their time ran out. Since if something bad were to happen, it would likely happen toward the end. Yet it ended without incident, as had every anxious situation in the years since the battle with Koitek operatives, but she was only slowly beginning to relax. While those events had gone smoothly, maybe their wedding would as well. And if that was true, then what were they waiting for? Lizzie gazed toward John as they headed out, pondering the thought. But there were so many things they were dealing with, so many considerations, so many thoughts, and it was wonderful just being with him. There's no need to rush. Setting the matter aside, Lizzie happily just discussed the speech with John as they headed home. There would be discussion groups, but the only person she wanted in her group was him. They talked late into the night and happily fell asleep, still in their clothes. In the middle of a boring psychology class, Lizzie partially listened to the lecture while she worked on her notebook. She was drawing lots of pictures of John now and getting a little better at it. Sometimes her focus drifted though, and she found herself writing his name over and over again. Now that the event was past, most of her immediate fears had been put to rest, at least temporarily. If Koitek wasn't likely to be tracking them, then she had more options. Maybe they could get married after all. So she was disappointed that she made them wait so long. But how to get to that point? Though she didn't worry about making John afraid of her, she didn't want to add any stress to his life by seeming too insistent. And yet, it had to be perfect. Their wedding would be another treasured memory of their lives together, that she wanted to carry around with her forever. A small part of her did worry that he was putting it off for some reason of his own. She couldn't doubt, that he was fully committed to her, but there was a difference between living together and actually getting married. The professor said something that drew some of her attention away from what really mattered. That list sounded like it would be on the exam, and he did like to include things that were lecture only to catch sleeping students. Lizzie quickly scribbled down two memories later, irritated at the distraction. The only reason she was even in class was that she needed credit to graduate. First, Lizzie had actually been interested, wondering if she could learn anything about depression that would help her be a better partner to John. But mostly, the class was just useless. Everything was focused on specific patterns of thought and declared them to be unnatural, and they didn't seem any stranger than the way most people thought, at least not to her. Trying to engage with it mentally just irritated her. And what they said about depression just made her angry. They talked about depression like it was a simple problem that would soon be cured. The professor was even a fan of Quitek. Lizzie was certain that if he had his way, they'd take away her John and replace him with a different person. Without realizing it, her writing in the notebook had become sketchy and angry. Lizzie refocused and tried to draw him again. The way he looked when he came through sadness and showed her that quiet happiness deep within his eyes. When the lecture ended, Lizzie wasn't quite there, so she better let and try to finish quickly. No one actually usually paid her any mind. She could finish and leave herself in a good place with... Holy shit. What do you want? Lizzie reacted instantly at the voice over her shoulder, slamming her notebook closed with one hand and reaching down for her axe with the other. She restrained herself from acting, instead focusing up on the girl beside her. That is some serial killer shit right there. Okay, bitch. How about you stop snooping around in other people's... leave me alone. I don't think my personal drawings are any of your business. It's everybody's problem you're stalking some random guy. Excuse me, that is my husband. Lizzie forced herself to smile, not mess anything up for him. Her body trembled just slightly as she put her notebook away and rose her feet calmly. That isn't some random guy. It's my boyfriend. And does he know you keep a stalker journal? No, but that was beside the point. She didn't understand. She didn't understand at all. She was insulting their relationship. Lizzie evaluated her quickly. No physical threat. No capability to put up any resistance. Ooh. There's a don't kill her somewhere. Yes, don't kill her. Taking a deep breath, Lizzie maintained control for John's sake and answered calmly. I don't think it's your place to meddle with our relationship. Yeah, no, it's just like what we were talking about last week. Either he doesn't know and you're creepy as hell, or he does and you have some kind of weird codependent relationship. Can't see you need help, you need someone to help you. You shouldn't say things like that. Look, I'm just applying what we're learning. John is a kind person. He wouldn't judge me like you do. Then he's just enabling your condition. Lizzie took a deep breath and took a moment to think. Okay. Let's see. Befriend her until opportunity for extensive torture. Oh my god. And acquire napalm. Bury her alive. End the conversation, tell John all about it. Strangle her with her own intestines. Remove her clean and dispose of the body. I want to say, because I am curious about the other options. I'm not gonna do that yet. Okay, let's see. End the conversation quickly and require. No, my bad. I chose the wrong one. End the conversation and tell John all about it. Only her promises to him prevented Lizzie from doing what she wanted to do. Instead, she gave the other girl a smile. The professor also said that analysis should only be done by professionals. Are you a certified professional? The response was nothing special, only the best that Lizzie could match while under stress. Yet the other girl took a step back, suddenly uncertain. Look, I was just making an observation, okay? Perhaps you could make such observations about your own relationship. A moment later, the girl fled class with remarkable speed. Lizzie suppressed the urge to give chase. That had not been entirely wise of her. She didn't care about that right now. Her world was still hollow, and she slowly became aware that she was gripping the hand of Rack so tightly that it hurt. Though her mind still knew exactly what it wanted to do, Lizzie remembered John and set those thoughts aside. Refocused, Lizzie carefully loosened her grip, then headed home at the highest speed that wouldn't draw attention. When she arrived, she threw herself into John's arms and held him tightly. He looked concerned as she hesitated for a moment before the words spilled out of her in a white-hot flood. She held nothing back, telling the story in a disjointed tangle of events, her emotions, and what she wanted to do. John just held her and listened, not judging in the slightest. Being in his arms always calmed her. Soon Lizzie was closer to what others would consider normal. She did like being that way, happy and peaceful. She could do more for John like this. It was an unintended side effect, and it stopped her from slaughtering anyone. John, thank you. I'm always here for you, Lizzie. As she regained clarity, she realized that she had added stress to his life by doing this. Though she berated herself for it, Lizzie knew that he didn't mind helping her in this way. Does it make you angry to hear the things that she said? It does, a little. She probably just has a big head after learning new concepts in class and wants to use them on people. John is kind. Too kind. I'll always protect him. And I'm glad you do, Lizzie. But you don't need to hurt anyone to protect me, okay? Okay. She embraced him warmly, trying to pour affection into him instead of just receiving it. But her regret now holding back her thoughts instead drained him a little, but at least she knew that he would never judge her. She stayed in his arms for a while after that, setting aside her guilt over causing him stress and just indulging in his kindness for a while. The girl had been right about one thing. A normal boy could never have been with her. John was special. That's why they were so wonderful together. Even as she regained her full calm, however, one thing didn't change on her mind. Maybe it wasn't possible due to circumstances, but it would have been better to kill the girl. No, Lizzie. How about we not do that?